Okay, we're going to move to item 5.5. I will also note that we need to try to get Mr. Lanning. I understand that you have some guests as well that are under some time commitments, so we will try to move as expeditiously as we can. With that, I'm going to turn this over to Executive Vice Chancellor Skinner. This is our Little Hoover Commission report. I am delighted to welcome the Executive Director of the Little Hoover Commission, Mr. Stuart Drown. Eric?
Hello. Good afternoon, President Himmelstein, Chancellor Scott, members of the Board of Governors. We're fortunate this afternoon to have with us Mr. Stuart Drown, Executive Director for the Little Hoover Commission. And I think most of you are aware, but the Little Hoover Commission is a state oversight agency that conducts reviews of state operations and then brings forward findings and recommendations to help improve the efficiency, effectiveness, and economy of those operations. And currently, the Little Hoover Commission is in the process of conducting a review of the community college system. They've had a couple of hearings to date. Chancellor Scott has presented to the Commission, as have various members of the community college community, CEOs, faculty members, et cetera. So we're fortunate today to have Executive Director Drown here to present a little bit on that project, its time frames, its objectives, et cetera. So, welcome.
Very good. Eric, thank you so much. Again, I'm Stuart Drown, the Executive Director of the Little Hoover Commission. We really appreciate this opportunity to speak to you about the study that we are really in the middle of. We have gotten through the bulk of the hearing process. We've held 3 hearings, and now we're continuing our public process with the advisory committee process. We've had one in September where we heard, not in September, last month, where we heard from trustees and former trustees about the various issues that they face. The Commission began this review to explore the scope of what the state asks of our community college system and whether, at this point, given the resources we have and the way the other legs of the master plan are, whether we're asking too much. This study is looking at the system's governance structure, authority, and resources to explore whether they're adequate, appropriate, and sufficient to assure the best outcomes for its students, for its employers, and for the state. Now, as you know, all roads either lead to the community college system or through the community college system. This study, in its most recent form, we looked at the system in 2000 and also in '86, but the present commission was led to this destination because of its work on career technical education, a study that we had done on education governance, where we're looking at the various roles and accountability and authority, and then finally a report a year and a half ago on economic development, which really stressed how much we rely on the community college system as a mechanism to help our economy evolve and stay competitive. These studies highlighted the need to develop post-secondary education opportunities to strengthen the state's workforce, create pathways for individuals to enrich their lives, improve the ability to get better jobs, to become more active citizens. The Commission's work in this area is reinforced by calls from President Obama, California's Commission on the Future, and others to increase the number of college completions, eliminate the achievement gap, and increase participation. As with other studies, the Commission will schedule visits to community college and seek additional input from various stakeholders, and all of you are welcome to share your views and your thoughts with us, and our staff is welcome to hear that, and we've been harassing Chancellor Scott and his staff. It's been a lot of fun. And we expect to have a report sometime by the end of the year. Our clients in this are the legislature and the governor, but through them, the people of California. What we've heard, what we've heard is probably very familiar to all of you, but we hear it from sometimes a different perspective, and the perspective we generally use is governance and structure. So we've heard a lot about the challenges, and we are accused of flying at 30,000 feet. I heard that before, and I wondered if that was setting the table for us or not. But we, you can see a lot of things from 30,000 feet. And some of them are the macro challenges that California faces. We simply need more college graduates for our economy, and we need more people to have more education. We need it for them, and we need it for California. It's what was the golden door, and, is the golden door opening or closing? We want to make sure that golden door is still opening. By 2025, 41% of the jobs in the state will require four-year degrees. Better for the state if those graduates are from California. We need to make sure that our people from Fresno to Eureka, Riverside, Los Angeles, San Bernardino are prepared to get those jobs. Many other jobs will require, in addition to these high school diplomas, a year or more of extra education or training, the kind that Californians can find, have found in our community colleges. Our economy is changing as it emerges from this recession. California has long relied on the community colleges as a place where people can go to update their skills or learn how to start over completely in a new industry. This is important for employees, for employers, and for the state's vibrant economy. Not enough students are getting what they need and what we need as a state from their community college experience. We've heard from researchers that 23% of students in one study transferred to four-year institutions. Over time, many of them got degrees. But of the students tracked during that time, only 7.9% earned an associate's degree and only 3.3% earned certificates. We, as a society, need more of our community college students to be at least that successful. And we need to make better use of their time and increasingly scarce public resources to make this happen. At our most recent hearing in June, we also heard about the extraordinary number of adults who have significant education deficits, some of them newcomers who are also struggling with the language, and the shrinking amount of dollars that are earmarked for adult education. We heard about positive efforts underway to coordinate the state's limited resources in this area, but are particularly concerned that the state is losing the capacity to provide foundational education necessary to get these adults on track to take their place in society and the economy. What that means is that the flex spending for K-12 is shrinking adult ed, which has significant ramifications for your folks at the local level. And the question is, how do we do better, and who should be responsible? We know that the state has much to be proud of for the college's work. The individual colleges and districts are developing innovative programs to meet local and regional needs. We heard from a lot of your innovators at the president's level and at the board level, building pathways for students to succeed. We know that the chancellor's office and its partners are looking for more ways to build efficiencies across the system and to make progress in establishing transfer degrees with the CSUs and UC common course numbering. We also know that the Student Success Task Force is working hard to develop recommendations for your board to consider to improve student outcomes. As one of the board members just mentioned as we were speaking, the commission is getting a fuller appreciation for the constraints under which the system works or doesn't work. And it's a complex basket of regulations and customs and political forces, and obvious answers, we understand, are not so obvious once you get right up close to them. So we'll probably be taking our time and making our recommendations. The Commission is concerned about the impact of budget cuts and the number of students that are being turned away from opportunities in the community colleges. We just heard some more about this. This undermines the open access mission directly and erodes other missions as well. As Chancellor Scott just said, turning away students is rationing access. We do not have open access. We're concerned that the current students are taking longer to get out because many are having trouble getting the classes they need to complete. Others are enrolling in classes only to find they're underprepared or absolutely unprepared for college work. While some of these students need less than a year of remedial work to catch up, many others are much further behind. These challenges, again, I know are very familiar to you. So the commission realizes that these problems are far too large for our study to resolve. So realistically, these are things that you, the experts, have to take the lead on. The questions the commission really is asking is, as currently structured, does the system have the capacity to lead this change? And what structure would be better? And what are the hurdles that exist to moving towards such a structure? We're looking at the Office of the Chancellor and its authority relative to other levels of governance in the system. We've heard from many witnesses that the community college system is challenged by its governance structure, which simultaneously lacks strong local control as well as a coherent, centralized, statewide system. We've heard from some witnesses who suggest the Chancellor's office should be restructured, that its status as a state agency under the control of the legislature and the governor prevents it from exercising adequate coordination and leadership. We've heard from others that feel that the Chancellor's office does not have adequate authority to make decisions on how it itself operates. The Commission also is looking at the relationship between the Chancellor's office and local districts and the way districts organize and interact with each other, nearby community colleges as well as other higher education institutions. And we've heard about the tensions that can arise when priorities at the local level do not align with the priorities at the state level, as well as the regulations that inhibit greater interaction and prevent voluntary consolidation, where some people are starting to think about that. We've heard also about the challenges associated with the legislature's strong role in establishing policy for the community college system. Some have suggested that the Chancellor's office should have the authority to intervene and assist in district matters when appropriate. Under the current system, people with problems at a single district too often go to the legislature, which then crafts a solution that is, they apply to the entire system as a whole, and it may or may not fit the other districts, and it might not even fit the district that it was created to help. We've also heard about the need to re-examine the way the state funds community colleges, both in relation to the K-12 system as well as the regulations that drive how money is allocated at the expense of flexibility and innovation in addressing the budget challenges that your districts face. At this point, we're looking for your input and your ideas, and they don't all have to come today. I know you're pressed for time, but again, we appreciate the help we've gotten from your staff, from the Chancellor's office, and I'd have to say that the trustees and the faculty and the local boards have been extremely cooperative and engaged. I think they realize that there are some issues that require a lot of heavy lifting here, and are willing to share their expertise. It's been a very invigorating experience. So thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. I'll let other board members make comment or question. One thing I would say, and I don't know if it's part of your planning process in the study, certainly the Board of Governors has a very unique role in governance of this system, whether you compare it to others or, from here to the local. So I might suggest that certainly talking to some, or a few of our members of this board might be beneficial as well.
Thank you, and we will.
And I know several of us would be very, very willing to do that. Questions, board members? Member Malumed, then Member McDougall.
Thank you for coming today, so I can meet you. I haven't met you before. And I had a chance to talk to Tamar Foster, who works in the Little Hoover Commission, for 2.5 hours in the month of May. So I've had a chance. I just happened to meet her at the Student Success Task Force meeting, and we talked. So I've had that opportunity, and I'm sure she's dressed in that lovely coral outfit in the back, so I'm sure she'd be more than happy. And the other thing I was going to share is I told him I've watched it on the Cal channel. So you can, on the computer, go to www.calchannel.com, and they do have the Little Hoover meetings, and you can just click and watch them. And they can be long, but they were interesting. It's also interesting to hear the Little Hoover Commissioner's questions, because they're learning about our system too. And they also had some very good presentations that I've caught. So I will recommend it to the board if you're interested, just to get a sense of who they are and how they work, because I did not know much about it.
In addition to the hearings being archived, all the testimony that's been submitted by witnesses is also available on our website at www.lhc.ca.gov, and that's an invaluable resource.
Are your meetings on your website that we can watch on the computer?
Oh, the link goes back to the Cal
Okay.
channel.
Okay,
That's-
thank you.
We work with
I just wanted to share.
But yes, it does link through.
Member McDougal.
Yeah, I was just struck by your comments in terms of, I don't know how to label it, a contradiction, a problem, or a dilemma. But the call for the need that exists in the state for people to have an educational level that will enable us as a state to respond to this new economic future, if you will. That particular piece of it, and then the situation where we have turning away, at present, 140,000 students from getting into the very basic education that they need in the community college. And it's almost as though we're having a discussion over here and a reality here that, where do you go with? Where do you go with it? I'm not trying to be unfair, but it's.
No,
it's
I
a
mean,
tough-
that is a central dilemma. I mean,
Yeah.
we are, through our budget process, rationing access. So then the next question becomes, how do we make the best use of the time, the most efficient use of the time the students are in there, so that we can get them in and get them out, and in prepared, and recognizing that we're dealing with students that aren't necessarily able to go on a linear path in 2 years, that many of them have families and other issues that prevent them from racing through. And those are the people we need to succeed. We need them to succeed. So it is a tough brief that the community colleges have been dealt. But
We have, and when you say what we can do to have the students succeed, we have unprecedented demands that are being placed on the students. We have economic situations in families that across the board are getting worse and worse. We match that with a record of increases on student fees and costs for higher education that are unprecedented for a state that not that long ago provided totally free access to all components of higher education, with the community colleges, the last in about 1981 to impose fees on our students. So we have a worsening of the times, and we have a worsening of what is taking place in preventing students from getting the education they want from any number of things.
And what we, in our long-term health, need for them to get.
Excuse me?
And what we as a state, for our long-term health, need for them to get.
Exactly. It just seems that these issues are so big, the changes in public policy that California is undergoing, they occur incrementally, and they're not necessarily that observable, but when you compare period X with the present, for example, 1980 with 2011, and what is preventing access, what might be preventing achievement, the societal conditions are vastly different. And our capability of responding to those are lessened because of the decrease in support that is coming into the system. So,
And much of that's beyond your control. To go back to the metaphor that an educator used to ask me when I used to be a journalist, is the golden door that we've let through so many people through to help the state become rich, is the golden door opening, or is it closing?
well, there's no question about that. Golden Door is closing. I mean, it's closing in a lot of ways. It's closing in terms of access. It's closing in terms of cost to students. It's closing in terms of capacity to pay even the costs that may have existed 40 years ago, never mind the cost today. And some organization, perhaps the Little Hoover Commission, must make that clearer to the voters and the people in California. It's incrementally hurting the state tremendously.
I think you'll find a lot of support for that on the commission.
Member Ramos.
Yeah, Director Drown, it's great to have you here, and my impression from your comments is that you're already pretty well informed about the complexity of issues that we deal with here all the time. In the
Due
context of
to
our system.
the hearing process and Tamar Foster's good work.
Yeah, and I appreciate your due diligence, and I encourage more of it, and I echo our president's statement that members of this board are available to be
We look
helpful in any
forward
way
to
that
that.
we can be. I guess to complicate an already complicated conversation, what I would want to say is fairly obvious and probably well known to you, but for the record, it seems to me that it's very critical and even essential for any analysis of our system or systems, if you want to, go there, to be understood in the larger context of the higher education and K through 12 education systems in the state, in addition to the larger workforce economy that you've talked about. And therefore, I wonder to what extent are you engaging with other stakeholders who are, kind of partner organizations in the enterprise of, educating and preparing our population for future jobs. I mean, we've had our own engagements, incidentally, with K through 12 leaders. We will be meeting in this session tomorrow with the new leadership in that body. We have had important engagements with CSU leadership, to a lesser extent with UC leadership. But it seems like in my short period of time on this board, while there has been active movement to engage more intentionally and more strategically those allied players in the larger drama of the landscape, that we really, to keep pace with the challenges that you've talked about, that Peter's talked about, we're running behind. We're not synchronized, we're not aligned, we're not talking about integrated strategies, and my hope, therefore, is that as the Little Hoover Commission looks at our work and our charge moving forward, that it will not do so in a vacuum, but do so in an integrated, multi-part perspective about how these pieces all fit together in the most optimal way, given the constraints and the challenges that we face. Is that something that we can anticipate, or is that too much to ask for an already very large agenda?
It is a large agenda, but there's a window for what you're talking about. I mean, we certainly talk to those stakeholders in the economic development report and the CTE report. So, as I said, this is the next step in that path. One of the things we're looking at is where is there the flexibility and what can be done to encourage some of the regional approaches that we see where community colleges are working with nearby CSUs or UCs, and what's working there. Often it's proximity, often it's personalities that seem to gel, but often it's just communication that makes people realize that we don't have all the time in the world, we don't have all the money in the world, but we have some opportunities here, so let's grab them. And forcing people to eat lunch, I think, is a start. So, but I thank you, Mr. Ramos. That's something I can take back to the commission.
Well, I would hope that the moments where you can identify models and best practices that are working in those contexts, that we can think about scaling those, that we can think about ways
Right.
to ratchet those up to a level of larger statewide policies, so they're not just incidental to what's happening kind of by mistake or a happenstance on the ground, but they become common practice and more efficient and effective ways to do our business, all of us.
Right. That's our hope, too.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. Drown, I appreciate you coming to brief us. We look forward to more of these as you move forward.
Good. I appreciate your help and your good.